This is Morning Perfect Base. I'm Van Velding. I'm going to work on my perfect base a little bit each day, and after a couple of weeks, we are going to see where we are. I'm also going to talk about a little bit of news here. Some of this. That is a hole. Is that part of? I'm not sure what that's a part of. I can't get a block under it though. Because, you know, I've dug up down here before. I really just need a surface to lay down this base layer so that there's a little something under it. No, I got no torches down there. Weird. Alright, well, no one cares. I think this is andesite. So, then a dirt layer, and I'm going to need another dirt layer. Yeah. So, I don't want to waste my dirt here. Just put more andesite down here. And, yeah, it's going to be a little hole. Just a little hole. It's going to be... No, I can't do it. I can't leave the hole there. I'm sorry. Okay, I cannot leave the hole here. So I'm going to be going back over some news articles which date back to about the 8th, simply because I need to record and produce an episode of Morning Perfect Base every day, and I don't. And you hearing about old news is, you know, it's my punishment. Don't think about it too much. Look, so I read the news every morning, and I'm getting into the habit of pulling one article a day and queuing it up for Morning Perfect Base. You can tell this is the part that I wrote, and I haven't done it in some odd 16 days. NaNoWriMo's doing well, though. I have been writing about the news, I just haven't been sitting down to produce and record it, which takes fucking 1 hour, 2 hours maybe. The better I get at elocution, the better I get at my delivery, the better I get at not having to do a second take of an entire 15-minute Dealy Mabob word bit together tape, the better it goes. So the quicker everything goes if I can get it right the first time. And one thing I really love about Morning Perfect Base is that it is relatively short for me to record. When I do the Beige and the Bold with Derek, what happens is that I can start with a lot of focus. And then by the time I get to, you know, the 15-20 minute mark, that focus on my elocution is gone. I'm hanging out with my friend Derek, and I am not saying words the way I should say words. I'm not thinking about what I'm saying before I'm saying it. And it sucks. I get bad at it, and then my tone changes, right? I don't project, I don't enunciate. I end up with garbage. 1 second here. 1 second. I should edit this. There we go. I'm going to dig up here to calculate the corner, because I'm going to dig up for this outer area. And then I'm just going to try to dig up above that, and then kind of dig up from there, and then dig up above that until I can get a big space that I know is my corner, and then I can cut down around that. So this is going to be the apartment section where I keep villagers. And hopefully I can keep them more intelligently than I did in Perfect Base 3. And also hopefully I won't lose track of where I am along this wall. So I had two real humdinger articles lined up. Antibiotic resistance and Netflix making anime. Netflix making anime, the jokes, the body pillows, they practically make themselves. But as they do, modern day politics have forced me to deal with this motherfucker. In Harris County, Texas, naturally, Judge Glenn Devlin, I think his name is, he asked juvenile defendants if they intended to kill anyone when they were released. Those that said no, you know, most of them, were released. Only one was kept and the other 7 were let out. Now, I've read about the school-to-prison pipeline. I've heard treatises on the 14th Amendment as a form of legalized slavery through the justice system. Even as, like, Louisiana is just now requiring unanimous juries to convict murder defendants. Like, we're all bitching about private prisons and how they gouge prisoners for, like, paying for communications and basic necessities while violating their rights. I am aware even that some part of Nixon's war on drugs was to disenfranchise hippies and black voters. So the natural assumption is that I am pro-releasing kids from jail, and generally speaking, that is true. The American justice system is a vital, albeit flawed, system, and we should commit ourselves to the hard work of reforming it. The assumption is that its members, from police to district attorneys to judges to lawmakers, serve the public in whatever way they can within the confines of their role. That's not, I think, a wild assumption. But Judge Glenn Devlin's reasoning was that this release was what voters wanted. He released these kids the day after he lost a bid for re-election. Texas elects our judges, and it's stupid, and I've got one example of that right here. But, the rampant mischaracterization of one's political opponents, the falsehoods that, for example, the left loves illegal immigration and hates America and funds immigrant caravans, are the kind of things which allow feeble-minded idiots like Judge Devlin to justify harming the public because the public disagrees with them. I'm sorry, risking harm to the public because the public disagrees with them. I gotta move this bed. I gotta get out of this whole fucking room because I keep kind of living here and I should be living downstairs, but I'm not. I'm gonna be putting, as I build up different parts of this base, I'm gonna be replacing bits of this piecemeal. Actually, this garden up here is probably gonna be the last bit to go. But when one political axis sees the other as not simply opposed to them on political principles, but as an existential threat to the country, it's a blanket justification for any petty, spiteful action they want to take. It's a tantrum where Judge Devlin essentially said, if the voters don't agree with me, then they don't want law and order and America, so fuck them. I tend not to shit on people for who they vote for, and that even includes Trump voters to some extent. But the people who voted for this guy were obviously wrong. And if you think I am incorrect about that, his selfish tantrum and abandonment of the duties of his position put those voters at risk as much as the public at large, as much as the ones that voted against him. Even if he believed that a majority of Harris County wanted to start a year-round execution of the Purge 2013, he's still screwing the minority who feel the way he does. It's another hard lesson that when you elect people to office because you think they'll support your in-group, whether your in-group is your race or your gender or your religion or your fellow anxiety-racked middle classers who are sinking into the lower class for reasons they cannot be bothered to comprehend, they will always seek to shrink that in-group down to themselves. I know that identity politics is a conservative code word for giving a shit about the problems faced by non-white, non-male, non-straight, non-middle class identifying Americans. But, and I know I'm off my central thesis here, but you know it's NaNoWriMo, and I take my word sprints where I can get them. Let's not forget that not caring about LGBT problems is identity politics for straight people. Not caring for not caring about police brutality is identity politics for non-black Americans. Not giving a damn about sexual assault against women is identity politics for men. Being a proud gun owner is identity politics. The flaw in identity politics is that it bequeaths political power to people like you because you trust them, because you agree with what they propose, because they say the words that resonate with you, because they are like you. It draws a circle in society between you and them, with you on the inside and them on the outside. But if you deny that's anything but voting for people based on the foundation of them being like you, in the expectation that they will reciprocate that vote with political protection for all of the members of your imaginary little circle, you are lying to yourself. You are a deluded liar living in a comfortable nest of lies. And it's insane. It's a cynical worldview. where you get yours and everyone else can have their remains. And if they look up to you and say, this isn't enough, you can ignore them because you and yours have power. You're inside. But what you do not realize is that there are circles throughout this society, and the people you give power to do not see the same lines that you do. Your obedience isn't appreciated. It's expected. That power you gave them isn't a duty. It is a right, long deferred and finally conferred. Are you in their circle? You're in one of their circles, but only in as much as you're a face in the crowd. But you're not ever in the circle that matters, no matter what small identity you hold as to the most important, your whiteness, your performative patriotism, your Christianity. For the powerful people of the world, their most important line is the one that's carved through our society by raw power. It's the line between people who are useful to them and people who are not. Power's in-group is power, and you're not in it. It's kind of funny in its obviousness, isn't it? Anyway, Judge Devlin showed that. Releasing 7 suspected juvenile criminals was an act as impotent as it was petty, but it is emblematic. He did that to punish his community, even his own voters, because they weren't in his circle. He was entitled to their vote and they didn't give it to him. Therefore, punishment. It's less a whirlwind than a fart in a jar, but they sowed it, just as every nationalist movement is sowing it. The last thing I want to say on this is a big congratulations to Harris County. I mean, fuck this guy. And you did good by getting rid of him. I think that was actually, like, for a 300-word newsprint in the morning, that was more than 300 words by some 800 words. What's next? Oh, this is from the MarySue.com. The angry black female character trope has got to go. I'm opposed. I'm supposed to be writing these daily news warm-ups. You know, pick one news article a day out of everything I read, do some analysis, 300 words, bada bing, bada boom. So the Mary Sue had this article about using minority characters in genre fiction. They specifically cite the chilling adventures of Sabrina. That's on Netflix, and a character named Prudence. They go deep into Tara from True Blood as well, which seemed to jive with what I've seen of the show. I haven't seen any of Sabrina. I've seen, like, the first season or 2, maybe 3 of True Blood. Whenever Tara starts street fighting, that was kind of whenever I fluttered away. Anyway, Prudence is apparently a 70-year-old witch in the body of an attractive woman in her 20s, naturally. So she's an African-American character, and she's a pure-blood witch or whatever, while your main character's a half-blood, so they do the whole Harry Potter, mudblood, magical racism bullshit. And I guess the main character's probably Sabrina. What the article takes issue with is the repetition of this trope to have a black character engage in racism to heighten the irony of bigotry in general. And hey, I get it. I write. You want those contrasts. Oh, the irony of Magneto, a Jewish Holocaust survivor, advocating mutants as the superior race. Like, we all get it, man. Racism is stupid. Except, okay, all right. Racism is stupid with no exceptions. What is objectionable is that this trope repeatedly places black supporting characters in the position of being racist against white main characters. This feeds the false notion of reverse racism, erases racism against non-white folks in America, and flattens the supporting characters into depictions of racism as cartoony as those depictions themselves. My favorite example of this is the episode of Grey's Anatomy where the actor who plays the top in Queer as Folk comes in and he's playing a racist with all these racist tattoos. So then Dr. Bailey, who is great and badass and is also a black woman, she sees this and she hates them, and we do the whole racism on network television dance, which includes the white racist wears tattoos, because obviously for white people the only racism is explicit racism. There's no way we could be implicitly or unconsciously racist at all. And then, like, the white person has to come and go, oh, wow, I can't believe racism. Oh, that's so bad. I hate it so much. It's impossible for me to be racist, though, because I don't have the tattoos. And, of course, there's no internalized or subtle racism there. But the subtle racism happens with the characters of color. In this episode, Dr. Bailey's like, I'm gonna do surgery on this guy, and I'm gonna get Dr. Yang, who's an Asian resident, to help me with the surgery. So this racist has to deal with doctors of color saving his life. And then Dr. Yang is like, suddenly, no, this was bad for my training, and maybe you're the real racist here because you chose me based on my Asianness to do something. And it's like, bitch, you did surgery. Like, you're training. Fucking. Anyway, it's the actually racism from people of color is insidious. And it's white people compartmentalize their stereotyping so well. No one ever... it does... Okay, it doesn't matter. So anyway, the people of color somehow obliged to prove their worth to the racists, and certainly want the characters in your show to be good people, and you want the audience to root for them, and those characters should do things to make the audience root for them. I just got through watching Atlantic Rim in an episode of MST3K that I almost stopped watching for the first time, but the crew pulled me through. And anyway, if Dr. Bailey were to pass this guy like the bucket of war vomit that he was to the next doctor and wash her hands of any obligation to teach anything to a full-on adult who hates her just for breathing while she goes into the next room, to have the exact same number of people who don't hate her, is that less heroic than Walter White to pass on curing this guy? Is it less heroic than BBC's Sherlock or Jessica Jones or Captain Vin fucking Sisko, who did some war crimes? But of course, the characters of color do stay and they do educate, and that's because that's what the episode is about, and that is not necessarily wrong. You know, I get that. But I agree with the Mary Sue that, you know, I think maybe some of those tropes should be reevaluated and used less. Tropes are never inherently bad. It's how we use them that reveals something about ourselves. And you know, we all love Daryl Davis, the dude who's talked over 200 Klansmen into giving up their hoods. But for most of us, the racists who live in our lives aren't cartoons and aren't even reasonable, even if we as white people were being told to engage these people. I mean, in these narratives, we get to stand up and vehemently declare that we're not racist, while everyone else has to get into the trenches and prove to racists that they're even worthy of existing. And boy, shucks howdy, y'all, if they are worthy, then that big racist who doesn't believe their lives have any value whatsoever is going to change his opinion and see the light. But if he don't, then I guess it's just because those people of color weren't racist after all. And better try harder next time, while I'm over here yelling about how I hate racism so darn much. God. Anyway, I feel like despite reading from a prepared script, I kind of rambled on that one. But I think I jumped the rail on my three main points related to Sabrina, but this being the writing of 500,000 words and never erasing any of them because, no. I'm going to blaze forward like that rant didn't happen, and hope I haven't said all this before because it's one of the rattlers that just kind of hangs onto my head and bounces around in it and eventually comes out half-formed when I'm forcing conversation with a person I barely know. And writing it allows me to look back and touch it up and sharpen the points and question my assumptions and look for something stronger. I'm going to put some wood down here just to let me know that this is my wood boxes. Anyway, I'm missing my Commander Night at the game store for this, so I am going to keep pushing on. The first thing that having a character like Priscilla engage in racism against a half-blooded white main character is that it feeds the notion that a lot of white people have that reverse racism is a thing, whenever I can only say, my dudes, my man, that is not so much a thing. Like, I read that right. It should have been feed this notion that a lot of fucking idiot white people have that reverse racism is a thing. Like, I'm sure there are places where black folks with power over white folks do fucking use race as a pretext for using that power to harm. But America is based on the opposite of that. You know, regular racism, like literally the racism that we enshrined in the Constitution. And then some more laws after Constitution. Then we fought a war after it. And then when a lot of those laws were overturned, We made new, sneakier laws and had corrupt, racist officials enforce them in any way they saw fit, as long as it deprived black Americans of the full vista of opportunities which should be available to all Americans. And then we did away with those laws in the 60s, again under threat of violence, and all the reluctance that reluctance implies. And those resistors and corrupt officials and many of their kids are still alive and still legislating and still enforcing laws. Again, I feel like this is a ramble that's been bouncing around. We should just put that. Oh yeah, I guess it's still daylight. Well, anyway, until I get a good sign off.